as humans even, and as fractionals and business owners, we need that ability to bounce back and forth.
Don't automatically assume that every lead is an ideal client. There's a whole process to asking the right kinds of questions. No more chasing, no more ghosting, none of that stuff. Don't give away free advice, because free advice is worth what they paid for it.
We are doing this and we are collaborating versus me just sharing, ha ha ha, I'm super smart. And let me tell you. So, Dean, over the last few weeks, I've sent out a bunch of proposals, man, and like every single prospect has just completely ghosted, just like crickets. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And yes, I know this is the fractional pros and we're supposed to be the pros, but guess what? Even pros, we need help. We need help. So, Dean, help a brother out. What in the world could I have done wrong?
You know, this is one of those things that I think we all make the mistakes in the selling process. We work so hard, right? A lot of what we talk about on this podcast is, you know, how to find clients, how to find the right client, how to get an opportunity, all this stuff, right? And then they don't buy. They don't buy, and we know that there's some reasons why. We know there's some reasons why, and we have some strategies and a roadmap we're going to share today in the episode. But here's the thing. Don't act like Pavlov's dog. When the bell rings, we start to salivate, which means you talk to a prospect, they say, Atiba, we really like you, dude. We think you can help us. Can you send us a proposal? What is the actual reaction to that? The gut reaction is excitement, right? And the physical reaction is, what do we do? Okay.
Oh, it's even more than that. Isn't so often the actual reaction is you start to think about all the things you can now buy or do. Yeah. Because of your money that you're about to get.
You cash in the check you haven't even received, right?
Right?
It's so true. It's so true. So we immediately run back to our little proposal template. We start filling it out. We start trying to figure out, what are we going to do? What is it they really actually need? I'm not actually sure. I think they need this. And how am I going to price it? We'll give them that. And then you send it off in an email. And then what happens?
Nothing. Literally. Unless they're out of the office, and then you might get an autoresponder back saying,
yeah. At least then you know the email was correct, right? But that's true, right? Nothing happens. So that's very common. That happens 85% of the time with the fractionals I work with. It's like, I've got 3 proposals out there. Great. When are you going to know what's going to happen? Well, they said they'd get back to me in a couple of weeks, or I'm going to try and do this, and I've tried. Stop. Just stop. You've lost all control of the process. You've lost all influence in the process. And you've given up everything to the prospect. Everything. The prospect wants to know 2 things. When you get to that point of proposal, they want to know 2 things. They want to see your scope, which is what you're going to do, your solution, and they want to know what it's going to cost. When you give them those 2 things, they have no reason, unless they're ready to buy, to get back to you. They're in control. They can take your scope and do whatever the heck they want with it. They can take your price and do whatever the heck they want with it. They've got nothing to give back to you. There's no reason to, because we've given up all control. So instead of going through all of that headache, let's think about a strategic approach to landing clients consistently. And that's what we're going to dig into in today's episode. So let's break it down. Regardless of where the lead comes from, you have an intro call, right? With your prospect. Yep. That first time to meet them, greet them, get to know them, say hi, and all the things. That introductory call is really, we're going to use it for 2 things. We're going to try and understand their need, right? And establish just a little bit of credibility with them so they want to have a second call. Okay. The goal isn't to do a full deep discovery or give them your life story or any of this other stuff. Keep it to 30 minutes. understand their need, establish some credibility. And that first piece, understand the need, is that need aligned with the work you want to do, you like to do, you're good at doing? Do you even like this person? Would you sign up to work with them for a year or not? So actually, it's more about you than it is about them, even though it feels like you're asking questions about them so you get to know them, and you are. You get the right to say yay or nay to continue in the process. Don't automatically assume that every lead is an ideal client. So that's step one. It's just that intro call. Step one. That's all it is.
Okay.
Then, assuming that we like each other enough and there's a mutual desire to continue the conversation, you set up a discovery call. And you don't call it that. That's our internal term.
Right.
But it's an opportunity to get to know this prospect at a deeper level and really figure out how we can work together. And that's how I often describe it with the prospect. Sounds like we've got some alignment. Sounds like my expertise and experience can probably help you get where you need to be. Let's schedule another call and get down into the weeds a little bit and really understand what's going on in the business and see if there's a way to support each other or we can support you. And that's the discovery call. And there's a whole process to asking the right kinds of questions.
So now, is the goal of this discovery call are you providing any solutions in the discovery call? Because we did a little bit of credibility up front. What's kind of the outcome goal there for the discovery call?
Yeah. Don't give away free advice, right? Because free advice is worth what they paid for it. Right? If you're trying to wow someone with this whole solution, like here's how I think you need to solve this problem on a discovery call, it won't land like you hope it will. They're not going to take your advice. They're just going to be listening and probably tuning out. So it's okay, and it's preferred that you share stories of how you've dealt with similar problems before.
Yeah.
Prior clients, maybe when you're in corporate, you did the thing that solved the problem that they're trying to solve. You weave that into the conversation. That's preferable. That's ideal. Is sharing those stories, sharing those examples, but you're not telling them the detailed how. They're not ready to hear it yet. They just want to know that you understand what they're going through, and there's a likelihood that you might be able to help. That's where we're at.
Gotcha.
So the outcome for a discovery call is that they want to continue the conversation. That's it, right? Business owners are always very happy to share, right? You get them talking, they tell you stuff, what's going on in the business and how it's impacting them and all the things. Get them talking using a very intentional approach. But your goal is to be able to extract enough information to be able to put together an intelligent approach to solving the problem. Which will lead to your scope in your proposal. If you don't understand enough about the problem, the outcomes, the situation, all of those things, how can you possibly share an intelligent solution? You can't do it. You can't do it. So I'd like to take what I call a collaborative approach to selling. And for those that are non-sellers, right, you're in every other discipline except sales, or even if you were in corporate sales, as a fractional, it's probably the first time you've had to sell yourself and not some product or brand. So it's a different sale. So when we think about the collaborative approach, imagine yourself sitting on the same side of the desk as your prospect, and you're both looking at this problem together. You're helping them get clear on the problem. You're helping them get clear on what the potential solutions may be. You're working together. You're collaborating. That's a very different energy than a consultative approach where you're sharing ideas and solutions, and it's a completely different energy, different approach, different dynamic. So when you take that collaborative approach, you're building a relationship at a much deeper level than you are versus a consultative approach. You're on the outside as a consultant, but when you take a collaborative approach, you already get to see and feel what it's like to potentially work with you.
So it's kind of like we, not me.
We, not me. I've heard that before. Yeah, that's one of Atiba's go-to phrases. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
So we are doing this and we're collaborating versus me just sharing, I'm super smart. And let me tell you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They start to feel like you're part of the team before they ever say, would you like to be part of the team? Right. And that's a big part of building that trust as well. And in a prior episode, we talked about Alex Hormozy and this sort of value equation. And
Yeah.
one of the components of the value equation is perceived likelihood of achievement
Yes.
in the eyes of the prospect. Taking this approach exponentially grows that element. Right. They're like, I can see how this might work. They're starting to feel confident. And they still don't know the details of how.
Right.
And that's okay, because that doesn't matter yet. So that's a lot of the reason why we go through this second step, which is discovery. After intro, discovery is to understand all that stuff and make sure they're aligned. We're starting to feel alignment here.
Mm-hmm.
And your proposal should never be the first time you discuss price. We're not even close to proposal yet in this strategy, in this approach. I like to, in the discovery call, anchor a little bit, because usually they will ask for a proposal. If all things are going well, maybe they'll say, well, how much does this stuff cost? Those are all buying signals. Those are good. If they ask for a proposal, I'm not going to give it to them. I'm not going to give them a proposal. I never send a proposal. I just don't.
Never.
Yeah, not yet. Nope.
Not yet.
Not yet. At some point, they need a document to read and sign. But that is way down the road. We're not even close to even looking at that yet. So if I've done this before,
yeah,
and I know that this is probably let's say it's a 1 day a week type fractional engagement, and I know that this type of client, type of complexity is probably going to be an XYZ type monthly fee, I may give them a range, depending on the energy in the room, kind of thing. And let's say at the low end as a fractional, you're going to charge $6,500 for a 1 day a week, but it could be as much as 85 or $9,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
I would give them a range. Something like this sounds like it probably is going to be a 1 day a week type fractional engagement, and it's going to be in the $6,500 to $8,500 range. Just test. Just see how they respond. Don't fill in the gap. Say the number, give them the range, and stop. Let them respond. All right. And if you get like a positive type, okay, all right, then you don't bring it up again. You don't have to until the time is right.
So let me ask you. So you said say the number and stop. Can you say the number and ask a question? For example, how does that sit with you?
No.
So you just say the number and shut your mouth.
Keep your lips closed. They will respond. They will. They will respond. Because if you ask how does that sound? How does that feel? Those aren't can you afford it and will you spend the money? Those are emotional questions. Emotions are important obviously in the decision-making process, but how does that sound? If I gave somebody a number and said, how does that sound? What are they immediately to do? They're going to say, well, can we do better than that? They want a better price. They want a deal.
Right.
Well, no, let them respond however they want first. And obviously then you can approach whatever they say accordingly. If they say, for example, okay, that makes sense, you keep on with the conversation. If they push back on price immediately, like, holy cow, that's way out of my price range, now you know. Now you can come back to the conversation, maybe adjust scope, adjust your thinking of how you might approach this problem. Maybe they're not the right client for a fractional engagement. Maybe they're better for a project, right? So you can come back to them with that. If $6,500 on the loan is way out of their price range, I would say, tell me more. That's my response. Tell me more. Not what is your budget, or how much can you afford, or when do you think you can. Tell me more.
Tell me more.
They will share more. Because that will uncover, well, we're dealing with this cash flow issue, or we've got this big accounts receivable hanging out there that we think we can get in, but then we're good to go. But we fill in that silence. We don't give them the chance to respond like that.
Yeah, and it's always, in this sales time, like you said, if you're a corporate salesperson, you've been selling for a long time, you're used to that silence when you're selling someone else's product. right? But you have so much emotional stuff tied to selling your own thing that silence can feel like pain.
Uncomfortable silence. Yep.
Right? But your point is a salient one. You've got to let it sit.
Yeah. This isn't a manipulation. It really isn't. It can be
No.
used that way, but this is not that. This is just letting them process, letting them think. Unless they've hired fractionals before, it's all new to them. So just give them time to process. It's okay. Some are going to be really verbal processors and want to go back and forth. Others are just going to sit there and like let the wheels turn. Give them that space. That's totally fine. So at the end of the discovery process, you've got enough information to start to think about how you're going to put your approach together. And they've got a sense of like, this might actually work.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to continue the conversation. So the next step still isn't proposal. It still isn't sending a quote. It still isn't doing any of that stuff. It's what I call the suggested approach call. And what that is an opportunity to lay out how you think you might work together to help them solve that problem. This is a little more of the how conversation. So if you present a proposal and a scope now, they're going to feel like that's the only option. But then it becomes this binary decision, yes or no. Remember, this is collaborative, right? We want this feedback, this back and forth. We want to create an approach that works for everybody to get the desired result. So the suggested approach call, I encourage people to have 2 or 3 slides, maybe, or it's 1 page, and it just lays out a high level problem we're going to try and solve and what we anticipate the outcomes will be. And then an outline, 3 bullet points of how we're going to work together. And as a fractional, we're not going to talk about the buttons we're going to push, the tactics we're going to implement. It's the responsibilities that we're going to own and our approach to that, right? The people we're going to lead, the teams we're going to build, the systems we're going to do. It's our responsibilities versus our tactics.
Yeah.
And that's a really different thinking than a scope that most people put together. So as a CFO, do I want to see on your proposal that you can enter 25 invoices a day into QuickBooks? No, that's not your job. Now, you want to make sure that all accounts receivable is managed. That's a responsibility, not a tactic.
Yeah.
Right. So the suggested approach is this conversation around how I think we can work together. And the goal there is to get alignment, get some pushback from them, make adjustments. And then once you've got alignment around that suggested approach, now your price went from this $3,000 range, maybe you narrow it a little further because you want to continue to make sure there's alignment around that. And only until you get verbal approval on our approach and the price do you ever even think about developing a proposal.
Because by then it's a foregone conclusion. It's a formality.
No more chasing, no more ghosting, none of that stuff. So at the end of that suggested approach call, you always summarize with, feels like we're aligned in terms of how we're going to work together and the associated cost, right? And they're doing what you do, just a little subtle nod. Yeah, makes sense. Any other questions, any other thoughts? No? Okay, great. Let's hop back on a call, 15, 20 minutes. We'll go through the proposal, make sure you don't have any other questions, and we can go on from there. So you actually set another meeting with your prospect. You're asking for their time. Because guess what? If they can't give you the time during this process, do you really think they're going to be available for you when you engage with them?
They're not at all.
They're not investing it. You're asking them to invest in the process as much as you are. And that's really uncommon when it comes to the sales process.
So let's look at the psychological side of this. So one, I love the process. I love the 4 steps. It makes a lot of sense in helping move people through. But let's look at the psychological side of why this works. Because I can also hear someone listening to this and saying, oh my gosh, 4 calls. That sounds like so absorbent and people are going to fall off and people are going to disappear on me. And I'm going to have even less people going all the way through the process. But here's Here's the psychological side. Okay. 7, 11, 4. It's a formula. It says in order for someone to truly buy from you and truly want to buy from you, they have to spend 7 hours with you, have 11 meaningful interactions in 4 different environments. And so you want someone to buy, they have to go through all of that. And so what you're saying is, let's control some of that. Let's not leave it to chance that you will go out and read my blogs or consume my social or watch my videos. I mean, yes, you're going to do some of that stuff too, but let me also take you through. And I mean, you just went through at least 3, if not 3.5 of those 7 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And believe me, in those 3.5 hours, there were many meaningful interactions. That's the beauty of the pause. Even when you say the number and you pause, that's a meaningful interaction right there.
Yeah. It is. It is.
Okay. So psychologically, in terms of the way humans work, when we look at the principles of how humans work, psychologically, this makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I'll build on that. Remember what we're wanting to be engaged to do: executive level work, whether that's a director, a VP, or a C level. Imagine if your client was hiring a full-time CMO. Would they hire that person in a 30-minute interview? No. They're going to meet with you multiple times. You're going to meet with the leadership team. They maybe even have you do some work and test out your expertise. It's hours and hours, weeks, and sometimes months of process. And they are happy to engage in that with a executive they're going to hire full time. We're just asking for a fraction of that, right? Because it's that level of importance.
Absolutely.
This isn't just selling a commoditized, short-term project where it's low risk. We're becoming an embedded part of their leadership team. So they have to make good decisions. I hope they realize they're making good decisions. And this interaction just helps streamline that process in an intentional way, right? We're guiding the process of getting to some kind of conclusion together.
Yes. Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, you just showed me what I did wrong in some of those. So thank you, my friend, as always. This was great. Thank you for putting me on the couch and giving me some therapy today. And all jokes aside, this is though what we need as humans, even and as fractionals and business owners. We need that ability to bounce back and forth. And it's one of the things that I know you provide in your academy and with your program that you have. And so for anyone who's listening to us and recognizing, oh crap, I didn't force that. I didn't even know what. And you're probably sitting with even more questions. Let me just tell you, this is why Dean has created what he's created, so that you can learn how to be an effective business owner and executive that can serve other businesses. So Dean, how do they learn more? How does someone learn more about getting help from you?
Yeah. The community in the program is, as Atiba's mentioned, is the Fractional Launchpad. So just Google fractionallaunchpad.com. You'll go right to our program page. You can read about it there. Even better, hook me up on LinkedIn. Just DM me on LinkedIn. We'll have a chat. I can share some insights, give you some guidance as well. But that's the best place, fractionallaunchpad.com, or find me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Dean, this was great. Thank you. Thank you for the therapy session, my friend. Much appreciated. And as always, he's Dean. I'm Atiba. We're the Fractional Pros. We'll see you next time, everybody.
See you next time.